I play with humans, said the alien woman, 30 seconds later. She went still. Part 1. The Game Master. Crystal walls of the observation deck glowed with soft blue light as Zaranth floated above her control panel, long fingers pale, as moonlight danced across the holographic displays showing Earth far below. The small asteroid that hit her ship looked ordinary from the outside, but inside it held technology that could reshape worlds. Another successful cycle, she said to herself, watching the red dots spread across the planet's surface. Each dot represented a conflict zone, a war, or a disaster that she had carefully planned. The humans below had no idea that their greatest tragedies were just entertainment for beings like her. Zaranth had been doing this for 3,000 years. She was a Veltar, one of the ancient race that had mastered the galaxy long before humans learned to make fire. Her people lived for millions of years, and they had grown bored with ordinary existence. So they found a new hobby, playing with younger species like children play with toys. The communication crystal beside her lit up with purple light. The face of another Veltar appeared in the air. Kethvar, her supervisor from the High Council. Zarantha's voice was smooth and emotionless. Your latest human game shows excellent results. The nuclear tension you created has brought them exactly to the breaking point, just as predicted. She smiled, feeling proud of her work. Thank you, Kethvar. Spent 50 years setting up this scenario. First, I influenced their leaders to develop more weapons. Then I created the economic problems that made different nations blame each other. Finally, I triggered the border incident that started everything. On her screen, she could see human cities filled with frightened people. Soldiers moved through streets. Children cried in their mothers' arms. News reports showed angry politicians threatening war. It was exactly what she had planned. The beauty of it, Zaranth continued, is how predictable they are. Humans always react the same way to fear. They become tribal. They blame outsiders. They choose violence over peace. It's like watching the same play over and over again. Kethvar nodded. Indeed. We've run the same scenario on 47 different species. The results are always identical. Fear makes them forget their better nature. Zaranth touched another. Control, and the view changed to show a meeting room where world leaders sat around a table. Their faces were tense with worry and anger. She had spent years getting each of these people into positions of power, carefully choosing those who would make the exact decisions she needed. Watch this, she said excitedly. He will believe that his enemies are preparing a first strike, and he will order his military to prepare for war. And then, Kethvar asked, though he already knew the answer. Then I will create a small miracle. Zaranth laughed. At the last moment, just when the humans think they will destroy themselves, I will arrange for a communication error to be discovered. They will realize they were wrong about the attack. The crisis will end. They will feel relief and gratitude, never knowing that I created both their fear and their salvation. It was the perfect game. The humans would suffer just enough to be interesting, but not enough to actually destroy themselves. After all, Zaranth needed them alive for the next game. Your work is acceptable, Kethvar said. However, the Council has noted some unusual readings from your station. Your emotional response indicators have been fluctuating, Zaranth felt. A moment of concern, but she hid it well. There is no problem, Supervisor. I maintain perfect objectivity. See that you do. Remember, Zaranth, we observe these creatures for entertainment and research. We do not become attached to them. They are simple animals with basic patterns of behavior. After Kethvar's image disappeared, Zaranth turned back to her screens. But his words bothered her more than she wanted to admit. It was true that lately she had been feeling different when she watched the humans. Sometimes, when she saw their pain, she felt an uncomfortable sensation in her chest. When she watched them help each other during disasters, something stirred. Inside her, that felt almost like warmth. She pushed these thoughts away. She was Veltar. She was above such primitive emotions. On the screen, the crisis was reaching its peak. Military forces were moving into position. Leaders were making their final decisions. Fear filled the air of the planet below, like a thick cloud. But then, something caught her attention. In one of the war zones she was monitoring, something unexpected was happening. A group of human soldiers had found enemy soldiers trapped under a collapsed building. Instead of leaving them to die or taking them prisoner, the humans were digging them out with their bare hands, risking their own lives to save their enemies. Zaranth leaned forward, studying the scene more carefully. This wasn't in her calculations. According to all her research and the data from thousands of other species, creatures under extreme stress focused only on their own survival. They didn't risk themselves for enemies. She switched to another view. In a refugee camp, she saw a mother giving her last piece of bread to a child who wasn't her own. The woman's own children watched with hollow, hungry eyes, but they didn't complain. Instead, they smiled at the stranger child as he ate. Interesting, Zaranth murmured. She had seen such behavior before in humans, but she had always dismissed it as rare exceptions to the rule. Now, as she looked more carefully, she realized these exceptions were happening everywhere, in the burning cities. Humans were running into dangerous buildings to save people they had never met. In the hospitals, doctors were treating everyone equally, whether they were friend or enemy. In the refugee centers, people were sharing their few possessions with newcomers who had even less. For the first time in 3,000 years, felt genuinely curious about something other than the success of her manipulation. She wanted to understand this behavior. Her scientific training told her it made no logical sense. These humans gained nothing from helping their enemies. In fact, they put themselves at risk. She made a decision that would have shocked Kethfer and the High Council. Instead of watching from her safe distance in space, she would go down to the planet. She would walk among the humans and study them up close. Zaranth activated her bioshaper, feeling the familiar tingling as her Veltar form dissolved and reformed. Within moments, she looked like a human woman in her 30s, with brown hair and ordinary features that would help her blend in. She could maintain this form for several days before needing to return to her true shape. She chose her destination carefully, a city that was currently under attack, where her manipulations had created the most chaos. If she was going to study human behavior under extreme stress, this would be the perfect laboratory. The teleportation field surrounded her with golden light, and she felt the strange sensation of her atoms being disassembled and sent across space. A moment later, she materialized in an alley between two damaged buildings. The smell hit her first: smoke, dust, and something else she couldn't identify. Fear, maybe, though she had never thought fear had a smell. Around her, the sounds of the crisis she had created filled the air. Sirens wailed in the distance. She could hear the rumble of military vehicles and the occasional explosion. But she could also hear something else: human voices calling to each other, not in panic, but in coordination. They were organizing rescue efforts, sharing information, helping each other survive. Zaranth stepped out of the alley and onto the main street. What she saw there made her pause. Despite the destruction around them, despite the fear she knew they must be feeling, the humans were not behaving like the primitive creatures her people believed them to be. She watched an elderly man helping a young mother carry her children to safety. She saw teenagers forming human chains to pass supplies to trapped survivors. She observed strangers comforting each other, sharing water, bandaging wounds without being asked. Fascinating, she whispered to herself, using the human word that seemed to fit her feelings better than any Veltar. Expression. She was so absorbed in her observations that she didn't notice the figure. Watching her from the shadows of a collapsed building, she didn't see the woman with intelligent eyes who had witnessed her materialization. She didn't know that Dr. Sarah Chen, quantum physicist turned refugee, was studying her with the same intense curiosity that she was studying the humans, and she certainly didn't know that in 30 seconds. Her entire understanding of the universe was about to change forever. "I play with humans," said the alien woman. 30 seconds later, she went still. Part 2. The observer observed ER. Sarah Chen pressed herself against the broken wall, her heart beating fast as she watched the impossible scene in the alley. Had seen the golden light, brighter than any human technology could create. She had watched a figure appear from nothing, like something from a science fiction movie. But Sarah wasn't an ordinary person.
Before the crisis began, she had been working.
Unclassified government research about quantum consciousness. Her experiments had changed her brain in ways she didn't fully understand. Now she could sense things that others couldn't, energy patterns, dimensional shifts, the strange vibrations that came from technology beyond Earth's capabilities. The woman who had appeared in the alley looked human, but Sarah's enhanced senses told her a different story. The newcomer's energy signature was wrong. It felt old, ancient, and powerful in a way that made Sarah's skin crawl. Sarah followed at a safe distance as the strange woman walked through the destroyed streets. She watched how the woman moved too, graceful, too controlled, like someone playing a role rather than living it. Most telling of all, the woman showed no real emotion at the destruction around her. She looked curious, interested, but not horrified like any normal human would be. As Sarah observed, pieces of a terrible puzzle began forming in her mind. The crisis that had brought the world to the edge of war had started with a series of impossible coincidences. Intelligence failures that seemed too convenient, communication breakdowns that happened at exactly the wrong moments, leaders making decisions that seemed designed to create maximum conflict. What if it wasn't coincidence? What if someone had been pulling the strings all along? The strange woman stopped in front of a collapsed hospital where rescue workers were digging through rubble with their bare hands. Sarah watched as the woman tilted her head, studying the humans like a scientist studying lab rats. The expression on her face was one of mild surprise, as if the humans weren't behaving the way she expected. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She stepped out of her hiding place and walked directly toward the strange woman. "You're not human," Sarah said quietly, stopping just a few feet away. The woman turned, and for just a moment, Sarah saw something flicker in her eyes. Something alien and vast, like looking into deep space. Then the human mask was back in place. "I don't know what you mean," the woman said, but her voice was too perfect, too controlled. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen," Sarah continued, ignoring the denial. "I was a quantum physicist before all this started. My research gave me the ability to sense dimensional anomalies. And you, whatever you are definitely anomalous." The woman ignored the thing, pretending to be a woman, studied Sarah with new interest. "Quantum consciousness research. How... unexpected. I didn't know humans had advanced that far. So you admit you're not human?" For a long moment they stared at each other while the sounds of rescue work continued around them. Finally, the woman smiled, and this time it was genuine rather than practiced. "My name is Zaranth," she said. "And you're right, I'm not human. I'm Veltar. We are ... observers." Observers. Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. "Is that what you call it when you watch people suffer?" "We don't just watch," Zaranth said, and there was something like pride in her voice. "We create scenarios to study how different species react under pressure. Your current crisis, for example, the nuclear tensions, the economic collapse, the border conflicts, all of it, was carefully designed to push humanity to its breaking point." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "You caused all this? The wars, the deaths, the suffering, that was you?" "Not just me. My people have been guiding human development for thousands of years. We've influenced your wars, your discoveries, your social movements. It's all been part of a long-term study." The casual way Zaranth spoke about human suffering made Sarah's hands clench into fists. Around them, people were crying over lost loved ones, risking their lives to save strangers, showing incredible courage in the face of disaster. And this alien creature had caused it all for entertainment. "Why?" Sarah asked through gritted teeth. Zaranth seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. "Why study anything? Knowledge is valuable. Understanding how lesser species react to various stimuli helps us predict and control galactic development patterns." "Lesser species?" Sarah's voice was dangerously quiet. "Of course, humans are young, primitive, ruled by emotions rather than logic. Your lifespans are brief, your technology basic. Your social structure's chaotic. You're interesting to study precisely because you're so simple and predictable. Sarah looked around at the rescue scene unfolding nearby. A group of teenagers was carefully lifting a piece of concrete off a trapped child. An elderly woman was bandaging the wounds of a soldier who had been trying to kill her people just hours before. A businessman in an expensive suit was using his shirt to make tourniquets for injured civilians. Simple and predictable? Sarah asked. Is that what you see when you look at them? Zarinth followed Sarah's gaze. I see creatures responding to crisis in exactly the ways my people have documented across 47 different species. Fear makes them tribal. Stress makes them violent. Scarcity makes them selfish. It's all quite standard. They're not looking very carefully, Sarah, said she, pointed to the teenagers. Those kids could have run to safety an hour ago. Instead, they've been digging people out of rubble all day. They're exhausted, scared, and some of them are probably injured. But they won't leave until everyone is safe. She pointed to the elderly woman. She lost her husband in the first bombing. That soldier she's helping belongs to the army that killed him, but she's treating his wounds anyway because she believes every life has value. She pointed to the businessman. He was a millionaire. Yesterday. His company was destroyed. His money is worthless, and he doesn't know if his family is alive. But he's here, helping strangers, because that's what humans do. Zarinth watched the scene Sarah described, and for the first time in centuries, she felt uncertain. These are statistical anomalies. Every species produces a few individuals who act against their own self-interest. A few? Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Look around. Really look. This isn't a few anomalies. This is how most humans behave when things get bad. We don't become more selfish under pressure. We become more generous. We don't become more violent. We become more protective. We don't become more divided. We become more united. Sarah began walking, and after a moment's hesitation, Zarinth followed. They passed group after group of humans helping each other, medical students treating injured enemies, shop owners giving away their remaining food to hungry families, construction workers using their tools to clear debris from homes that weren't their own. Your people have been studying us for thousands of years, Sarah said as they walked, but you've never understood the most important thing about humanity. We don't just survive disasters, we use them to become better than we were before. Zarinth felt something strange happening inside her chest. It was an uncomfortable sensation, like a muscle that had been asleep for too long suddenly waking up. That's not possible. Every species prioritizes individual survival above all else. It's a fundamental law of evolution. Maybe for every other species you've studied, Sarah said. But humans evolved as social creatures. Our survival has always depended on cooperation, not competition. When things get dangerous, our instinct isn't to save ourselves, it's to save each other. They stopped in front of a makeshift field hospital, where doctors were working without rest to treat an endless stream of casualties. Sarah watched Zarinth's face as the alien observed a surgeon giving up her own blood to save a patient she had never met. This surgeon has been operating for 18 hours straight, Sarah said quietly. She's past exhaustion. She could collapse at any moment. But she won't stop until every patient is stable. Zarinth stared at the surgeon. Why? What does she gain from this behavior? Nothing, Sarah said. That's the point. She gains nothing except the knowledge that she used her skills to help others. For humans, that's enough, the first time. In her long existence, Zarinth found herself without words. Everything she had been taught about lesser species, everything her people believed about the predictability of primitive emotions, was being challenged by what she saw. Your people think they understand us because they can manipulate us, Sarah continued. But manipulation isn't understanding. It's just another form of control. The thing about humans is we always find ways to break free from control. Sarah turned to face Zarinth directly. You've been playing games with us for thousands of years, thinking you were the masters and we were the pieces. But here's what you never realized. The pieces can choose to stop playing by your rules. Zarinth felt that strange sensation in her chest growing stronger. It was accompanied by something she hadn't experienced in millennia doubt. What are you saying? I'm saying your people have been playing games for so long. You've forgotten what it means to truly live, Sarah said. But we remember, and that's why eventually you'll lose. Saranth laughed, but the sound felt forced even too. Her own ears? Lose? We have technology you can't imagine. We can manipulate matter itself. I play with humans, said the alien woman 30 seconds later. She went still. Part 3. The awakening Sarah led Zarenth through the broken streets toward the old subway tunnel that served as the entrance to their underground shelter. The alien woman had been quiet for the past hour, watching everything with those two bright eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Where are you taking me? Zarenth asked, as they approached what looked like just another pile of rubble. To see something your species has never understood, Sarah replied, moving aside a piece of metal that revealed a hidden doorway, a society that your models say should be impossible. They climbed down rusty stairs into tunnels that should have been dark and frightening. Instead, soft lights guided their way, and the sound of voices not panicked or angry, but calm and organized decode from deeper in the underground space. Ever since the bombing started, about 200 people from all walks of life, thrown together by circumstances none of us could control. Zarenth nodded. Standard refugee behavior. I've observed this pattern many times. The strongest will dominate resources. Social hierarchies will form based on pre-crisis power structures. Competition for limited supplies will create conflict within days. Is that what you expect to see? Sarah asked with a small smile. They emerged from the tunnel into a large, underground chamber that had once been a subway station. Zarenth stopped walking, her enhanced senses taking in the scene before her with growing confusion. The space was organized, but not in the way her species had predicted. Instead of defensive positions and hoarded supplies, she saw something that looked almost like a small town. People had created different areas for different purposes. A medical station where several doctors worked together. A child care area where kids played while adults took turns watching them. A workshop where people repaired clothing and equipment for anyone who needed it. But what confused Zarenth most was the atmosphere. She had expected fear, tension, the kind of stress that made creatures desperate and violent. Instead, she sensed something she couldn't identify, a feeling of warmth and cooperation that seemed to flow through the entire community. This is impossible, she whispered. Why? Sarah asked. Because people are sharing instead of fighting. Because the strong are protecting the weak instead of exploiting them. Zarenth watched a scene that challenged everything she knew about crisis behavior. A man in an expensive business suit was teaching a group of teenagers how to purify water. Using simple chemical processes, a woman who had clearly been homeless before the crisis was showing a family of wealthy refugees how to make nutritious soup from scraps. An elderly professor was helping a young mechanic understand complex electrical systems. While the mechanic taught the professor how to repair torn clothing, "Your social models are wrong," Zarenth said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "Our social models?" Sarah laughed. "We don't have social models. Just do what feels right." A little girl, maybe 6 years old, ran up to them. Her clothes were dirty, but her eyes were bright with curiosity. "Dr. Sarah, did you bring a new friend?" Sarah knelt down to the child's level. "This is Zarenth, Emma. She's here to learn about how we live." Emma looked up at Zarenth with the direct stare that only children can manage. "Are you sad? You look sad?" The question hit Zarenth like a physical shock. She hadn't realized that her face was showing any emotion at all. I don't understand what I'm seeing here. What don't you understand? Emma asked with the innocent curiosity of childhood. Zaranth looked around the shelter again. You have limited resources, confined space, uncertain future, and constant danger. According to all scientific models, this community should have collapsed into chaos within days. There should be violence, hoarding, power struggles. Emma tilted her head, thinking about this seriously. But why would we fight each other? We're all in the same trouble. It makes more sense to help each other, doesn't it? The simple logic of a 6-year-old child somehow cut through thousands of years of Veltar scientific assumptions. Zaranth felt that strange sensation in her chest, growing stronger, spreading through her entire body like warmth flowing through cold metal. Yes, she said quietly. It does make sense. Emma smiled and skipped away to rejoin her friends. Sarah stood up and gestured for Zaranth to follow her deeper into the community. They passed a group of adults having what appeared to be a serious discussion. Zaranth paused to listen, expecting to hear arguments about resource allocation or leadership disputes. Instead, she heard something remarkable. Marcus has experience with electrical systems, a woman was saying. If we put him in charge of power management, we can probably extend our generator fuel by another week. Good idea, replied an older man. T and Sarah Chen's quantum research background makes her our best choice for figuring out these communication devices we salvaged. What about medical decisions? Asked a third person. Dr. Rodriguez has the most experience, but Dr. Kim has specialized training in emergency surgery. Why not both? Suggested the woman. Rodriguez can handle general care. Kim can take surgical cases, and they can consult each other on difficult decisions. Zaranth stared. They're assigning roles based on competence rather than dominance, without any central authority forcing these decisions. Shocking, isn't it? Sarah said with mild sarcasm.
Oh.
People working together because it benefits everyone. Rather than fighting for personal advantage, they continued through the shelter, and with each passing moment, Zaranth felt more disoriented. Everything she saw contradicted her understanding of how intelligent species behaved under stress. In one corner, a former CEO was teaching children basic mathematics while a homeless veteran organized the community's food distribution system. Neither seemed concerned about their lost social status. They were focused entirely on contributing whatever skills they had to the group's survival. In another area, she watched a heated discussion about rationing that ended not with someone imposing their will, but with the group reaching a consensus that satisfied everyone's core needs while maximizing overall resources. This is not normal behavior, Zaranth said, more to herself than to Sarah. Normal? According to whom? Sarah replied. Your people have been studying species across the galaxy for millions of years. But maybe you've been studying the wrong thing. What do you mean? Sarah stopped walking and turned to face the alien directly. You study how species react to manipulation? 2 artificial crises. 2 external pressure. But that's not the same as studying how they naturally develop and grow. Zaranth frowned. The conditions are identical. Stress is stress. No, Sarah said firmly. There's a difference between natural challenges that a species faces together and artificial manipulation designed to exploit their weaknesses. When you create problems for us to solve, you're not studying our true nature. You're studying how we react to being attacked. As if to illustrate her point, a commotion arose near the medical station. Someone had been injured during a supply run, and the news was spreading through the community. Zaranth watched, expecting to see fear and panic as people realized the danger was ongoing. Instead, she saw immediate coordinated response. Medical personnel rushed to help without being asked. Others began organizing a safer way to conduct future supply runs. Parents gathered children and explained the situation honestly but calmly. No one blamed anyone else. No one panicked. They simply adapted and continued working together. When humans face genuine challenges, Sarah continued, we don't become more primitive. We become more advanced. We develop new ways of cooperation, new methods of solving problems, new depths of compassion. Zaranth felt something breaking. Inside her mind, assumptions that had been solid for millennia were cracking under the weight of what she was observing. But my people are more advanced. You have lived longer, learned more, developed technologies you cannot imagine. You, though? Sarah asked gently. Or have you just become better at controlling things? What's the difference? Sarah gestured around the shelter. Look at what these people have built in 3 weeks with nothing but scraps and determination. They've created a functioning society based on mutual respect and shared resources. They've solved problems through cooperation that none of them could have solved alone. They've maintained hope and dignity in circumstances that should have destroyed both. She paused, studying Zaranth's face. Now tell me, when was the last time your people created something new? When was the last time you faced a genuine challenge that forced you to grow? When was the last time you felt wonder at something unexpected? The questions hit Zaranth like hammer blows. She tried to remember the last time she had felt truly surprised by anything, the last time she had learned something that changed her understanding of the universe. The memories were ancient, buried under millennia of predictable observations and controlled experiments. We have achieved perfection, she said, but the words sounded hollow even to her. No, Sarah said softly. You've achieved stasis. You've become so afraid of uncertainty that you've eliminated the possibility of growth. You manipulate other species. Instead of learning from them, you observe. I play with humans, said the alien woman 30 seconds later. She went still. Part 4. The Reckoning, the crystal communication device in Zaranth's hidden ship, pulsed with urgent red light. Miles above the underground shelter, automated systems detected the changes in her biosignature and immediately sent an alert across the galaxy. The message was simple but alarming. Agent compromised. Immediate extraction required. In the shelter below, Zaranth felt a sharp pain shoot through her chest. Her human disguise flickered for a moment, revealing glimpses of her true, pale, ethereal form before snapping back into place. Sarah noticed immediately. What's happening to you? Sarah asked, reaching out to steady the alien woman who had suddenly gone very pale. I don't know, Zaranth admitted, fear creeping into her voice for the first time in centuries. My form is becoming unstable. This has never happened before. Around them, the humans in the shelter continued their daily routines, unaware that their world was about to change forever. Children played games in the corners, while adults worked on repairs and planning. The simple normality of it all made Zaranth's chest tighten with an emotion she couldn't name. Suddenly, every electronic device in the shelter began to malfunction. Radios crackled with static, flashlights dimmed, and the makeshift communication. Equipment Sarah's team had built started smoking. The humans looked around in confusion, but Sarah understood immediately. They're coming for you, she said quietly. Zaranth nodded, wrapping her arms around herself as another wave of pain shot through her body. The High Council has detected my ... changes. They will not allow contamination to spread. Contamination? Sarah's voice was sharp with anger. Is that what they call it when one of their people starts to feel something? Before Zaranth could answer, the ground above them began to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling as a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The humans in the shelter looked up nervously, recognizing the sound of approaching aircraft. But these were unlike any human technology. Everyone stay calm, Sarah called out to the community. We need to move to the deeper tunnels. Now. Dr. Rodriguez, the elderly physician who had become one of the shelter's unofficial leaders, began organizing the evacuation. Families with children first. Everyone else help carry supplies. Stay together. Zaranth watched in amazement as the humans responded to this new crisis with the same cooperation she had been observing for days. No one panicked. No one pushed ahead selfishly. Parents helped other people's children. The strong assisted the weak. Even facing an unknown threat, they maintained their commitment to taking care of each other. Why aren't they afraid? Zaranth asked as they moved deeper into the tunnel system. They are afraid, Sarah replied, helping an elderly man navigate the uneven ground. But fear doesn't make them forget who they are. If anything, it reminds them. Above ground, the sky filled. With ships that defied every law of physics humans understood. The Velter fleet had arrived, and they weren't hiding anymore. Massive, crystalline vessels descended through the clouds, their presence causing electronics worldwide to fail and creating strange auroras in broad daylight. In capital cities across the globe, world leaders received the same message simultaneously, transmitted directly into their minds through Veltar technology. People of Earth, your species has been under our guidance for millennia. The experiment is now complete. You'll be relocated to managed facilities where you can be properly studied and cared for. Resistance is futile. But the Veltar had made a critical error. They expected the same response they had seen from dozens of other species: panic, surrender, or futile military resistance. Instead, something unprecedented began to happen. In the shelter's deepest tunnel, Sarah managed to get her emergency radio working long enough to pick up broadcasts from around the world. What she heard made her smile, despite their desperate situation. "This is incredible," she said to Zaranth, who was now leaning heavily against the tunnel wall as her form continued to destabilize. "Listen to this." The radio crackled with voices from different countries, all saying variations of the same thing. Beijing calling all stations. "We are sharing our anti-gravity research with anyone who can use it. This is London. Our quantum physicists are uploading all classified data to open servers. Help yourselves. Moscow here. It's tanning down from all international conflicts. We have bigger problems now." New Delhi Broadcasting. "Our space program is coordinating with everyone. No more national secrets." Zaranth listened. In disbelief, they're sharing their most protected information during an invasion, don't you see? Sarah said, her eyes bright with excitement despite their dangerous situation. "This is what you never understood about humans. We face a threat to our entire species. We stop being separate nations and become one people." The radio continued to broadcast reports of unprecedented cooperation. Military forces that had been enemies hours earlier were now sharing intelligence and coordinating defensive strategies. Scientists were collaborating across all borders, pooling their knowledge to understand the alien technology. Even rival politicians were working together, putting aside decades of disagreement to focus on humanity's survival. But more than that, ordinary people were responding in ways that the Veltar's models had never predicted. Instead of hiding in fear, humans around the world were coming together in public spaces, holding hands, singing songs, sharing food with strangers. They were facing the unknown, not with violence or panic, but with unity and defiance. "This is not possible," Zaranth whispered, tears beginning to flow down her human face. "Species don't behave this way under extreme threat. Other species might not," Sarah said gently. "But humans aren't other species." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnels. But these weren't human footsteps. They moved too smoothly, too perfectly. The Veltar had found them. 3 figures materialized in the tunnel. Their true forms visible now that they weren't bothering with disguises. They were tall, pale, and beautiful in an alien way, but their eyes held no warmth, no real emotion. They looked at the humans the way scientists might look at interesting bacteria. "Zaranth," the lead figure spoke with Kethver's voice, "you will return to the ship immediately. Your contamination will be cleansed." "Contamination?" Zaranth struggled to stand, her hybrid form wavering between human and Veltar. "Is that what you call learning? Growing? Feeling something real? For the first time in millennia, you have been infected by primitive emotions," Kethver said dismissively. "It is unfortunate but reversible. The humans responsible for this contamination will be disposed of," Zaranth said, and the word came out stronger than she had expected. "I won't let you hurt them." Kethver looked genuinely surprised. "You would choose these short-lived creatures over your own species, over eternal life and perfect knowledge?" Zaranth looked around at the humans who had surrounded her and Sarah, not to capture them, but to protect them. Dr. Rodriguez stood, with a piece of metal pipe ready to defend people he barely knew. Emma, the little girl who had asked if she was sad, was holding the hand of an elderly woman, both of them afraid, but refusing to run. Marcus, the electrical engineer, was positioning himself between the aliens and the children. None of them had any chance against Veltar technology. They knew it, but they stood their ground anyway, because that's what humans did when their community was threatened. "Perfect knowledge?" Zarenth laughed, and the sound was bitter. We know everything except what it means to be alive. We can predict everything except how to grow. Control everything except our own emptiness. She turned to face her fellow Veltar, and as she did, her human disguise finally failed completely. But instead of returning to her original form, she had become something new. Neither fully human nor fully Veltar, but a bridge between both. These humans have taught me something our species forgot long ago, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. The most advanced civilization isn't the one that can control others. It's the one that can still be surprised by beauty, still grow from challenge, still choose love over power. Kethfer raised his hand, energy beginning to gather around his fingers. Enough. You will be purged and restored. But before he could strike, something unexpected happened. The tunnel filled with a strange resonance, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. Above ground, humans around the world had begun to sing not the same song, but millions of different songs that somehow harmonized into something greater than the sum of their parts. The sound disrupted Veltar technology in ways their scientists had never encountered. Their perfect control over matter and energy wavered as they faced something they had never learned to understand. The power of unified consciousness choosing hope over fear. Zarenth felt the resonance flowing through her transformed body, and for the first time in her existence, she understood what the humans had been trying to show her. True power wasn't about controlling others. It was about connecting with them. She raised her own hand, and energy flowed from her fingertips. But this wasn't the cold, controlling power of the Veltar. This was something warm, something alive, something that grew stronger when shared rather than weaker. I choose them, she said simply, and the galaxy would never be the same. I play with humans, said the alien woman 30 seconds later. She went still. Part 5, the new game. Energy that flowed from Zarenth's fingertips was unlike anything the Veltar had ever encountered. It wasn't the cold, controlling force they used to manipulate matter and minds. This power was warm, alive, and seemed to grow stronger as it touched the humans around her. Kethfer stepped back, his perfect composure cracking for the first time in millennia. What have you become? Something new, Zarenth replied, her transformed voice carrying harmonics that resonated with the global human song still echoing from above. Something your people thought was impossible. The energy spread outward from the tunnel, flowing up through the broken city above, and somehow connecting with similar energies awakening around the world. Wherever humans had gathered to face the alien threat together, the same phenomenon was occurring, a power that emerged not from technology or individual strength, but from conscious choice to stand united. Sarah watched in amazement as her quantum physics background helped her understand what was happening. It's a resonance cascade, she whispered. Human consciousness is creating a unified field that's interfering with their control systems. Above ground, the massive Veltar ships began to waver in the sky. Their perfect crystalline forms flickered, like bad television reception, as the expanding wave of unified human consciousness interfered with their matter manipulation technology. In the tunnel, Kethfer and his companions tried to retreat, but found their teleportation systems failing. For the first time in their species' history, a Veltar technology was being overwhelmed by something they couldn't predict or control. This is impossible, Kethfer said, his voice losing its usual calm authority. Consciousness cannot generate measurable energy fields. It can when it's truly unified, Zarenth said, her hybrid form now stabilizing into something beautiful and unique. Your people have been studying consciousness for millions of years, but you've never understood what it really is. She gestured to the humans around her, who were now glowing with the same warm energy that flowed from her transformed body. Consciousness isn't just individual awareness. It's the capacity to choose connection over separation, growth over stasis, love over control. The song from above grew stronger, carried by millions of human voices across the globe. But it wasn't just humans singing anymore. The broadcast that Sarah had picked up hours earlier was now carrying reports of something extraordinary happening on Veltar ships worldwide. This is incredible, Dr. Rodriguez said, listening to his emergency radio. Some of the aliens are Changing, they're leaving their ships and joining the humans on the ground. Zarinth smiled, feeling the resonance of other Veltar, who had made the same choice she had. Across the galaxy, her transformation was triggering something that the High Council had never anticipated. Other members of her species, exposed to genuine human emotion and cooperation, were remembering what they had lost in their pursuit of perfect control. You see, she said to Kethfer, consciousness is contagious. It's not like a disease, but like awakening. Once one person remembers how to truly live, others begin to remember too. Kethfer tried once more to use his matter manipulation abilities, but the energy field surrounding them was too strong. His perfect control was breaking down, and for the first time in eons, he felt something he had forgotten existed, fear. But as the fear touched him, something else awakened curiosity about his own emotional capacity. What? What is this sensation? It's called feeling, little Emma said, walking up to the towering alien without any sign of fear. It means you're alive inside, not just alive outside. The simple words from a human child accomplished what millions of years of Veltar philosophy could not. Kethfer felt something crack inside his consciousness, like ice breaking up in spring. For a moment, he saw the humans around him not as primitive subjects to be studied, but as beings with their own unique form of beauty and wisdom. 6. Months later, Sarah stood in what had once been the underground shelter, but was now the foundation of something entirely new. The tunnels had been expanded and transformed into a meeting place where humans had reformed. Veltar worked together on projects that neither species could have imagined alone. The global crisis that Zarinth had originally engineered had ended, not with nuclear war, but with the most unprecedented period of cooperation in human history. Nations that had been enemies for centuries were now sharing resources and knowledge freely. The threat of alien invasion had reminded humanity that they were all part of the same species, sharing the same small planet in a vast universe. But the changes went far beyond Earth. Reports came in daily from across the galaxy, carried by Veltar, who had chosen transformation over stasis. Species that had been failed experiments in the Veltar databases were emerging from hiding, forming alliances based on mutual growth rather than domination. The ripple effect is spreading faster than we ever imagined, Zaranth said, reviewing the latest communications from distant star systems. Her appearance had settled into a form that was clearly neither human nor Veltar, but something new, a living symbol of what was possible when different forms of consciousness chose to connect. Rather than control, Sarah looked up from her research notes. Over the past months, human and Veltar scientists working together had made breakthroughs that had seemed impossible before. The quantum consciousness field is stabilizing across multiple solar systems. Species are choosing cooperation over competition on a scale we've never seen. What about the unchanged Veltar? Dr. Rodriguez asked. He had become one of the project leaders, his medical background helping him understand the biological aspects of consciousness transformation. They're retreating, Zarinth said, with something like sadness in her voice. The High Council has withdrawn to the galaxy's outer rim. They've declared the affected regions contaminated and forbidden other Veltar from entering. That's their choice, Sarah said gently. Just like transformation was yours. Through the windows of their expanded facility, you could see children playing in the gardens above human children and young Veltar, who had been born since the transformation began. It's growing up together, as if the differences between their species were just interesting variations rather than barriers. Emma, now 7 years old and serving as an unofficial ambassador between species, came running up to them with excitement bright in her eyes. Zaranth, Sarah, come see what we discovered. They followed her outside to where a group of children had been working on an art project. What they saw made all 3 adults stop and wonder. The children had created a sculpture, using both human and Veltar techniques, but the result was something neither species had ever produced alone. It was beautiful in a way that seemed to capture the essence of consciousness itself, not static perfection, but dynamic growth, not individual achievement, but collaborative creation. How did you know to do this? Sarah asked. We didn't know, Emma said simply. We just played together, and this is what happened. Zaranth knelt down beside the sculpture, feeling tears on her face, something that would have been impossible in her original form. This is what your species tried to teach me from the beginning. The most profound discoveries come not from controlling or predicting, but from playing together and seeing what emerges. A communication crystal near them began glowing, indicating an incoming message from deep space. Sarah activated it, and a holographic image appeared, another species they had never seen before, clearly nervous but hopeful. "We received your broadcast about cooperation and transformation," the alien spokesperson said. "Our world has been isolated for centuries because we didn't fit the Veltar models. We would like to... learn how to play together." Sarah smiled and looked at Zaranth, who nodded enthusiastically. "Welcome to the new game," Sarah said to the hologram. "The rules are simple. There are no rules except kindness, curiosity, and the willingness to be surprised by what we can become together." As more species joined their growing alliance, as children of different worlds played and learned together, as consciousness itself seemed to be evolving in new directions, one phrase spread across the galaxy in hundreds of languages. It had started with Sarah's words too, Zaranth, in that first confrontation. But it had become something larger, a reminder of what made existence meaningful. We remember how to live, and, in their remembering, the galaxy began to discover forms of beauty, wisdom, and connection that none of them had ever imagined possible. The game had changed. Instead of observers and subjects, controllers and controlled, there were now just conscious beings choosing moment by moment to grow together into something more wonderful than any of them could become alone. Zaranth stood watching the children play, feeling gratitude for the day she had first heard a human child ask if she was sad. In trying to answer that simple question, she had discovered that the greatest form of intelligence wasn't the ability to predict and control, but the courage to remain open to transformation. The stars themselves seemed brighter, as if the universe was celebrating the emergence of something new and beautiful and alive. And in the gardens where children of many worlds played together, creating games that no species had ever imagined, the future was being born one moment of connection at a time.